Hello, everybody, and welcome back. My name is the name of this channel, and I have a very special video for you today. It is a video that I have been meaning to make for 3 years now, and I can really only make it during this special time of the year. As many of you may know about me, I love a good spooky movie. You see, I was exposed to the horror genre against my will at far too young an age, and as a result, it has scarred me forever. This means my tolerance for all things scary is a little bit higher, and as a result, I just really like scary movies, not just during this Halloween time, or October, or whenever you're watching this video, but all year round. And I just wanted to bring to you my top 13 and 1 scary movies. These are the movies that I would recommend to people if they were looking for something that they haven't seen before, or if they were just looking to get a little bit more in touch with that Halloween spirit, or if you're like me and a psychopath, just a good horror movie all year round. So I have compiled a list that I wanted to bring to you, and if your favorite horror movie isn't on this list, or if there's a movie that I perhaps haven't seen, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below of this video, and I may or may not get to it, or if this is part 1 and I continue to do this for many years, I might include it in my next video, part 2. So without further ado, let's begin. Scratch that. Before we begin, I want to make it known that none of these movies are in any particular order. Just because the first one's the first doesn't mean it's my favorite. Just because the last one's my last doesn't mean it's my least favorite. And vice versa. Now, without further ado. First on the list, Silence of the Lambs. Now, contrary to popular belief, there are actually no lambs in this video. It might be disappointing for some of you, but for others that might be a relief. This is one of the best movies, like all around in general, ever made. It is a 10 out of 10. This is one of those movies that I was recommended for a long time, and I just kind of put off and put off and put off. And so if you do the same thing, I recommend not doing that. Watch the movie. It is a fantastic movie. Anthony Hopkins, absolutely, I think he won like a Best Supporting Actor for this movie. So there's actually been a lot of spin-offs of this. This was also based on a book. But long story short, there's an FBI agent. She's trying to catch a killer, and she talks to this even more killer named Hannibal Lecter. You might have heard of him, Hannibal the Cannibal. And she talks to him to find out who the killer actually is. And that's the movie. And it is spooky, and Anthony Hopkins is frightening. Movie number 2. This one is my favorite on the list. It is a movie called The Thing. That is a very vague title, and it's the old thing, not the new thing. There are 2 different things. It's the first thing, not the second thing. Thing 1 and thing 2. Do you like Among Us? If you like the game Among Us and you like horror, then this is the movie for you. A shape-shifting creature from outer space crash lands, and just chaos ensues. This is one of my favorite movies because every character in it makes intelligent decisions. It's one of the only movies where that happens. Usually in horror movies, everyone has to make the worst possible decision ever. In The Thing, everyone makes very intelligent decisions to try and find out exactly who is infected. And when I say infected, the creature like attaches itself to you and like takes over your body and then becomes you, and it has all your memories and stuff. It is terrifying, but the things that make it a great movie are creature design. The effects in this movie hold up till today. They are frightening, and everything is a practical effect, no CGI, anything like that. And all the characters make phenomenal jobs. The acting's good. This is, once again, a 10 out of 10 film. Highly recommend. Number 3 on this list is a movie called Hereditary. Now, it has very little to do with biology, so you might be grateful for that, but it does have a unusual amount of headless persons in it. It is a slow burn film about a family and the slow descent into madness as a demon king tries to possess them. Yeah, that'd be about it. What makes this movie worse is that a lot of the stuff is based off of very real occult stuff, and if you look throughout the movie, it has a very large attention to detail when it comes to the symbols and things you see through the movie. May not be for everyone for that reason. I understand if some of you don't like demons and spooky stuff like that. But besides the demon stuff, it is one of the scarier movies on this list, and I do recommend it to people that are looking for something really frightening, something that will give them nightmares when they go to bed that night. Fourth on our list is a movie called The Witch, which is an appropriate name because there is a witch in it. Makes sense. This is more of a timepiece that has a very, very small cast and is also one of those very slow burn films. So, The Witch takes place in 17th century New England. It starts off with a family, and they are outed from their Christian settlement, and they go off to live in the forest by themselves. Which, if you are familiar with living in the woods or backpacking or anything like that, being out by yourself in the wilderness with just a few small people without the luxury of what we have today is a terrifying experience. And then you throw in a witch that just doesn't like you. Great setup. It is eerie. It is creepy. Goats especially are creepy in this one. Goats are creepy to me in general. I think it's their eyes. Number 5. Talk to Me. Not me personally. Don't talk to me, but the movie. Talk to Me is a recent horror film that was made by a YouTuber. I think that's correct. YouTuber made short films. They got their big break, and it is very good. This, once again, is a ghost film. It's not a creature film like The Thing, but it is a movie about temporary possession. The effects in this movie, along with the acting, are great, and despite there not being any monsters or demons necessarily, it does a great job with playing around with the idea of possession. And maybe just as a warning, don't take these things lightly. Number 6 on this list, and probably the movie that I've recommended the most because it is on Netflix, is a movie called The Ritual. It's a movie about doing everything wrong on a backpacking trip. This movie I often recommend because it has one of my favorite creature designs in modern movie history. And as someone who likes to backpack a lot, who likes the forest a lot, this one does hit home for me. There is a character in it. I'm not going to say who it is. Don't be like this character if you go on a backpacking trip. I will leave you behind. You will die. But The Ritual, once again, slower burn. Most of these are slow burn. Maybe that's just what I like. I like burning. So 4 friends go backpacking in the beautiful area that is Scandinavia, and they decide to take a shortcut. Which, once again, if you are backpacking, don't go off the trail. They cut through the woods and they encounter more than they expected. You see, in the forest, creatures live there. Big creatures sometimes. Sometimes they have antlers and faces and hands. I'm not going to spoil it too much for you, but this is an allegory for unresolved trauma. And sometimes that trauma manifests itself as a forest god. Number 7 is an older film. It's called Sleepy Hollow. It is a movie from 1999 starring Johnny Depp and Christopher Walken. I kid you not, Christopher Walken is a character in here. He's the Headless Horseman. So, if you know anything about the tale of Sleepy Hollow, it is a old tale about a man named Ichabod Crane who encounters a horseman that is headless, some kind of spirit, throws a pumpkin at people. You know the story. This is a modern retelling by Tim Burton that also has in it Christopher Lee. I was honestly not expecting to see Christopher Lee in this, but, you know, there he is. This one's an interesting one. It is somewhat comedic. It does have that Tim Burton flair to it. I'm not going to say it's a good movie. It's a fun, scary movie. We'll leave it at that. Number 8 on my list. We are more than halfway done. Thank you for staying with me. Number 8 is a movie called Trick or Treat. Not Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat. And this is an anthology movie. An anthology movie is a movie that's broken up into several sections, sometimes, you know, directed by different people. It's a way of storytelling, obviously. But this one is about a community experiencing Halloween. This is a Halloween film, not just a horror film. If I had to describe this movie, this would be like the Pulp Fiction of horror. It is a series of events that's going around with multiple characters and how they interact with each other on this blessed Halloween night. And then there's a kid that has a pumpkin for a head. That's the movie. It is funny, it is interesting, and there is something about anthology movies that I particularly enjoy because you may not like one story, but you might really like another story. It's an interesting form of storytelling, in my opinion, especially for horror. Speaking of anthology, there is a movie called VHS. And this actually has multiple directors. There is a new VHS that actually just came out called VHS 85. Takes place in the year 1985, obviously, but it's a series of like found footage like videos that are compiled into one video that has like this overarching storyline. So you have this outside storyline where the outside storyline is watching all these mini videos that are all have different directors, and it combines to a greater narrative, if that makes sense. That probably doesn't make sense. Just go watch the movie. VHS. There's like 4 or 5 of them now. Watch the first one, watch the newest one, and call it a day. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got monsters, it's got ghosts, it's got demons, it's got aliens. It really does have a little bit of everything. Number 10 on our list is 28 Days Later, and this is the zombie apocalypse where I would just give up. You may have seen The Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Shaun of the Dead. All those zombies walk. All the zombies in 28 Days Later are just Olympic sprinters. All of them. And it is terrifying to see just a horde of people sprinting towards you as fast as possible, like I sprint towards women at night. Probably put it up there next to like Train to Busan, which, secret movie recommendation, is a great zombie movie. Number 11, Ready or Not. Ready or Not may not be your typical horror movie, but it is very much a dark comedy, and it is one of those movies that is still bloody and violent and still funny. It revolves around the game kind of hide and seek, but imagine instead of playing hide and seek that the people you were hiding from were also trying to murder you as part of a weird satanic contract. It's one of those movies where it's probably best to know what you're marrying into before you actually marry into them. Number 12 on our list is a movie that actually didn't get a lot of traction when it first came out. It is a movie called The Empty Man. It is about a former cop who is looking for this girl that has the world's worst haircut, and how he finds a cult in the process, and they are trying to commune to space gods or ghosts or something. And it is very much a Lovecraftian film. If you like Lovecraft and like a kind of Bloody Mary cult-like movie, this would be the one to see. It didn't get a lot of reception when it first came out, but it is getting a cult following, and it is a weird kind of out there movie, a little bit cerebral. Gonna throw that word around, but it is one of those movies I also recommend. It used to be on Netflix, and Netflix got rid of it for whatever reason, but if you can find it, watch it. Number 13. We are there. We are towards the end. Number 13, we have Evil Dead 2. Specifically 2, although the entire Evil Dead franchise I do absolutely love. Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 are kind of the same movie. It's Sam Raimi, also the guy that made the Spider-Man movies, fun fact. But he made Evil Dead, and he made Evil Dead 2. And Evil Dead 2 is the comedy version of Evil Dead. They're all horror movies. They all have Bruce Campbell, who is also in the Spider-Man. And they are all a Cabin in the Woods style, also a good movie, Cabin in the Woods style horror flick, where you have this demonic presence that is brought to life by reading a book. Also why you shouldn't learn Latin, so you can't read books and bring demons into this world. So this demonic presence shows up after you read this book, and they just do unspeakable things. Like, very much unspeakable. I cannot show or even describe what happens in this movie, because I would get immediately banned from YouTube. The last and final movie, and this is a +1 because more than likely you're not going to find a place to watch it. It is a movie called Dead Alive, or sometimes known as Brain Dead, and it is effectively banned. In the United States, it was banned in Germany, and it's a movie made by Peter Jackson, the guy who made Lord of the Rings. Yeah, this guy made a horror film. It's a horror comedy that is over-the-top gore. It is wild, but if you could find it, I highly, highly recommend it. It's one of those movies that you're not going to find. You cannot buy this movie. I cannot log on and buy this movie on Google, on Apple, anywhere. It's not on Netflix. It's not streaming anywhere. This movie is gone. But because you might have a VPN and you can watch whatever you want, whenever you want. Because if it exists, it more than likely is on the internet. That is my list of 13 and 1 Halloween horror movie recommendations. If there is something that I missed, please let me know. If there are ones that you've watched in this list, let me know what you think of them down below in the comments. Leave a like, do all the stuff, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I will see you in my next video when I make it.